What's up, extraordinaires? Brett Young with Erb and Young coming at you right now. Hey, we're excited. We've got some cool guest appearances on some other podcast episodes, and we wanted to put those in the feed just to guys give you as much content as we possibly could. On some of these playbacks, we just decided there was rich information that served with our same message here, which is epitomizing excellence in everything that we do. So we hope you guys get a lot of value out of this. It was fun being on there. We want to say thank you for all of the podcast hosts for the collaboration. And as we do these guest appearances, we'll make sure to drop these not only in the feed for the podcast, but also right here on YouTube too. So thank you guys so much for your support and your love, and be extraordinary.
Hey listeners, this is Cap Dave Jackson coming to you from, and believe it or not, it is sunny here in beautiful Hendersonville, Tennessee, Nashville. And I can't be more thrilled today to tell you who I have on the show, Collabcast today. I have Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb from Erb and Young Insurance Agents in Orlando, Florida. Hey guys, thanks for coming on board.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So just avoid any bit of awkwardness, because there's three of you, and I might ask a question, and like all three of you might want to answer. I'm gonna call out who gets to talk, if you don't mind. And I guess it's gonna sound a little clunky, but that's fine. That way we're not talking over each other, and we'll have a little bit of direction. So I want to start out with personal stuff. This is what I do with all my guests. We'll get to the boring, unsexy insurance stuff at some point, but people want to hear about you, the people, the person, the man, in this case, all three of you. So I'm going to ask you some oddball questions, but go with me. Brett and Taylor, brothers, correct?
We are.
And who's the older?
The guy with less gray hair, which is Brett.
That'd be Brett. Brett's older. Brett, how old are you?
38.
38. And Taylor?
30.
I'm 35.
So were you guys in school together at some point? You were, right? Like senior, freshman, that kind of thing? In high school and maybe college?
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Same high school, same college. Yeah,
Yeah, we were
about 3.5 years apart, but we were 3 grades apart. So I got the privilege of being a freshman in high school when Brett was a senior. And it's fun. We played basketball together. I mean,
Okay, let me interrupt you, Taylor. So I scanned your LinkedIn profiles, and Taylor puts on his UCF men's basketball team. And Brett puts on his UCF, but in his activities, he puts intramural basketball. So who's the basketball player, really?
Without a doubt, it is Taylor Young. I was about to say we played together in high school for a little bit until he took my starting spot as a senior. So it hurt at the time, and then he went on to break every single record that's still hanging in the gym today. So yeah. My ego still hurts a little bit, but there's no doubt if we're playing one-on-one, he's putting a whooping on me. So
okay, back up 2 seconds. So you're a senior and Taylor is a freshman and he takes your starting spot? How's that even possible?
Oh, yeah. It's called hard work, dedication, and an obsession with the sport. So I would like to think that, I beat up on him while I was growing up, and he got to play with all the older players, which maybe helped. But, he was just more committed than I was. He just had a fanatical obsession with the game, and he just had that different level of competitiveness. So, it's no doubt and it's no shocker of why that happened. He was just it's a good metaphor for life.
I would say too.
Cool.
I mean, I grew up. I got the privilege of Brett beating up on me and playing with the older kids all my life, right? So I had a bunch of cousins that were like older brothers, and so I was the kid just trying to keep up with everyone. So I think I got that benefit, and then it just worked out that way. But Brett was a hell of a player in his own right, and it was really fun to share those memories together.
And Taylor, you are a UCF D1 scholarship?
I actually preferred walk-on at first, and then ended up earning a scholarship for a period of time in the latter years. But had a solid career in my own perspective. Was able to start for a few years and contribute, and it was a wonderful experience. And UCF's a great place, and it allows me to kind of stay involved there at a distance, and we've all kind of now bonded with the university, if you will. Even Rod, he's a Michigan guy, but he's just as much of a UCF football fan than he is maybe a Michigan fan now.
I see his golden maze on the shelf behind him, yeah. So back to UCF, and then we'll move on. UCF, I know, has really exploded on the D1 football scene, but where do they stand in terms of their basketball program?
Oh man, that's a softball question to start the podcast. They're going in the Big 12 next year, so I think they've actually built a nice program. I always feel like we've been chasing the Power 5 as a university, right? So now here we are at Big 12, Power 5 funding coming. Campus is unbelievable. The exposure is unbelievable. So I think that's only going to enhance, what's already a strong recruiting base. So I think the next 5 years you'll see UCF transform to, kind of a Power 6 type school to a full form Power 5 type school. They have a great coach in Johnny Dawkins in basketball, and they've had some good years. Mainly they had a big NCAA tournament run where they, lost to Duke at the buzzard in Columbia, South Carolina. I think it was back in 2017, maybe it was 19. I don't know. I'm getting old. But it's a strong program, but getting better.
Cool. So the reason why we're focusing on you and UCF right now is because I read up that it still says till present, you are doing the men's basketball color analyst job.
It is, man. And I probably just had some color analysts.
It's
pretty fun. I probably just, that kicks in and I, get on the mic. But no, it's been fun. I graduated, I was there 06 to 11, played there 5 years, redshirted 1. And then when I was getting done, somebody said, hey, would you want to do this? A friend of mine that was doing it at the time was getting back into coaching. And, quite frankly, it was kind of one of those, that makes me a little uncomfortable, but yes, cause that would be a really cool gig. And, here we are. I think it's been 11 seasons later, and the guy I do it with is just a legend at UCF. He does football, baseball, and basketball, and has for 30 years. So, he's made it super easy on me to kind of integrate and take what I've learned as a player and share as a commentator in a real way. So it's fun. I only do the home games, and it's more of kind of a passion, a hobby, and a side gig than anything. But it's fun. Yeah, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah, but you might have said it, but I missed it. Do you do radio?
Yeah, radio. TV? I've only done one TV game. Okay. They kind of intermittently will ask you to do it, but when it opens up. But I got a radio face.
Radio face. You also have a very good radio voice, just so you know. So don't let him put you on.
I was about to say, he's really good, Dave. He's very good.
I can tell.
When you hear him, you're like, who is this?
10-second clip. I want to hear it. Like, who was a star player last year? Tell us. He's on a hard drive from the baseline.
Oh, I don't know about that, man. I'm not really like a cheesy cliche commentator. I just try to share context and insight and, bridge the gap between the fan and what's going on in the huddle. So,
I can do it for you if you.
Yeah,
really
go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, man.
You don't want to hear that. No, you don't want to hear that. I don't even know your players, so I would never do it justice. So anyway, but yeah, I'm gonna have to tune in. Can I get that online sometime?
Yeah. You can get it online and iHeartRadio
Awesome.
and all that good stuff. So.
Oh, okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll have to tune in on that stuff. So, all right, cool. Rod, we haven't forgot about you, brother.
Hey, man, I get just as much joy out of listening to these two go back and forth about basketball. And, I see Taylor get amped up talking about his basketball, his radio scenario. So it's good for me just to sit here and watch.
Yeah. So give us the Michigan background. You're in Florida now, but you didn't live in Florida.
Yeah, born and raised just outside of Flint, Michigan. Murder capital of the world, 1986. If you're into that stat. Great place to be from, but I don't miss it. I moved to Florida in 1995 for the first time for the winters. I played golf. I'd come down for the winters, 95, 96, 97, then moved down here full time in 98. But I stayed a Michigan fan. I've always loved Michigan football. I'm not a pro guy. I'm not a pro basketball guy, pro football guy. strictly college basketball, college football, and yeah, there's nothing like the Big House. There's nothing like Michigan football, and up until a couple of years ago, there's not been much to follow there, and that's not the reason that I became a UCF fan. My family and I loved watching Taylor. We went to a lot of the home games, really went to most of the home games when Taylor was playing. So we became passionate about UCF, and then we're invited into a group of friends I have here in town to UCF football, and became a huge UCF football fan. Now we travel to away games, and you know, I'm probably more active in UCF football and just watch Michigan football from afar. But yeah, Michigan boy at heart, but love living in the Florida heat.
Wow. So I have a story to tell you. My fiance is a diehard.
Oh God, you guys handle this. I'm gonna be out.
It's. Oh, I'm telling you, if I let her in the room here, it's Michigan. She won't even pronounce the M. It's Michigan, and you know, now they're just hurting bad.
Why are they hurting the last 2 years?
So, yeah, well, let's not go there. So we're getting into the end of the season, this last football season, and you know, it's before the Michigan game, and if the winner of the Michigan game goes to the Big Ten, and if they beat Illinois, they're in it, right? They're in the, you know, probably top seed or two, maybe Georgia stays 1 and they're 2. So I go ahead and buy tickets to SoFi Stadium, where the national championship game would be played, just in the event that we make it. Of course, I say we, Ohio State, we don't make it. You guys do. And what a semifinal game. Anyway, I end up selling those tickets. They were really nice tickets. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details. I ended up pocketing $12,000 on a set of 4. Yeah, that's what ticket prices do. So I'm a ticket broker on the side now.
That's insane.
There's some decent coin. There's some decent coin on those high-profile games. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. Nobody believes me when I tell them this. True story. I had them for sale, and I kept dropping. They sold 6 hours prior to game time, prior to kickoff. Somebody scarfed them up off of whatever ticket site I had them on, Ticketmaster or whatever. And yeah, I'm like, Merry Christmas to me. That was quite a deal. So anyway, that's somewhat related to Michigan. So, Brett, we're going to come back to you, Brett, because I know our listeners are extremely interested in knowing about how Erb and Young got started. So you knew Rod, or you and Taylor knew Rod, obviously, before you started the agency. How did you guys come to know each other?
Yeah, well, Rod and I met. Obviously, I've known Taylor for a long time, so I've known him. But I met Rod, what was it, maybe 16 years ago. He'll correct me on dates. I'm not usually correct on these, but a long time ago. And we built a business together. We met during a business opportunity. He kind of mentored me through a process of kind of growing from a college kid to a man, and I'm forever grateful for his leadership and his ability to show me that there's a different way of doing things. So together we kind of grew an affinity for entrepreneurship. So we were in the network marketing space for about 5 years, built a team all across the country, extremely dedicated, got an opportunity for both of us to run alongside each other almost daily. We learned from some of the best mentors in the business, some of the best business builders and team builders that I have known still to this day, and I think he would agree. And we learned a lot of principles on how to build culture, how to build team, how to lead a voluntary army, how to create development-driven organizations. And through that process, realized that just wasn't the right industry or product that we wanted to be in, but found it was an insurance-based product. So we were in the meetings with the AFLACs and the voluntary benefits, and that was kind of the space that we lived in. But it was a product that most people didn't know about. It took a lot of education, and it was a low price point. Mm-hmm. And so the conversation just evolved with, hey, how do we get into a space where we take these same core philosophies of team building and get into a business that's much more pull driven. I mean, we don't have to push it out into the marketplace. People are coming to us for that. And a price point, transparently, that had a much higher, median, amount to it. So, we could escalate in income and escalate revenue growth. So the P&C industry came into the picture through talking to a couple different colleagues, or actually friends of friends from, I guess, my network. And through that conversation, and through that process, decided, hey, let's go do what we do, which is build teams, and go do it at another agency and build a team inside of an agency. Through that experience, Taylor was playing basketball at the time, but he was pretty active in regards to just what we were doing. He was involved. We got the chance to all three work together. But obviously he was, his number one love and craft was basketball. And so I went and applied for a job online at Craigslist, what all aspiring insurance agents love to do.
So this got my 220 before I got a gig. Industry?
First day in the industry. I said, this is what we want to do. I said, what does it take? I got a 220. I sat for it, and then I got on Craigslist and looked for a producer's job. They gave me a laptop and a contract and said, here you go. It was a 100% commission job. I knew nothing about the business. I think at that time I think I just came out of college. I think I was still on my parents' auto insurance policy. I knew nothing about insurance. And built that for about a year. Rod had a very successful medical sales career that he was inundated with. But we worked closely in regards to kind of what this would look like in the future. So I did that for about a year. Had 3 people come over and join that agency. One of was Susan Erb, who was extremely instrumental in us building the business, Rod's wife, and then another gentleman. And we built that business for about 14 months, and some things happened. Didn't go exactly the way that we expected it to go, and we had some decisions to make in regards to kind of what this looked like for the future. And we just decided that, after multiple times looking around at what was available, we looked at each other and said, well, what would happen if we just, opened this ourselves? And I think it was Rod asking that question. Rod has the tendency to ask these questions that I don't really want to answer, and that Taylor doesn't want to answer, because they're sometimes outlandish, but he forces us to think bigger, which I love. And keep in mind, I was in the business, he wasn't necessarily. He was just working in regards to what that would look like. So he didn't understand that the chicken before the egg, the carriers, all that stuff, what goes into that. So and I love him for that, because the reality is we decided to do that because we had no idea what we were doing, and we're crazy. During that process, I looked at Rod. I just said, well, we need a point guard. If we're going to do this, we got to have a point guard, because that's the blind spot in this potential partnership. And Taylor was just getting out of school, and he had been at an internship that he couldn't stand, and he was graduating, and so we poached him, and we said, hey man, what do you think about starting this business with us? It's a good industry. It's a good business. We've got some really cool concepts that we think will be different, and we'd love you to run point and kind of be the glue to this tripod. And he said yes, and the 3 of us all were off to the races. And so
and the rest is
that
history,
was the start, and it was a scratch startup. We started in a upstairs bedroom in Rod's house, and ignorance on fire, and did everything wrong that you could possibly imagine until about 36 months in, until we started to figure out, and then the rest is history.
That's a cool story. So here's how I envision it, since we're all basketball aficionados. So Taylor's running point. Brett, you're a small shooting forward is what I'm thinking. And Rod, you're a power forward. You guys are missing a post guy, a center guy, but maybe that's yet to come. Who knows? And then you still need a shooting guard. So I'm going to volunteer for the shooting guard, because I can rain threes like nobody's business.
There's always room. There's always room for shooters, Dave. That's if you can throw it in the hole, man. There's always a room on team, man.
Steph Curry's got nothing on me, so we'll see. Maybe that'll come some down.
He's got nothing on Taylor either.
So
not in the insurance business, at least.
Is that right? Okay, so you guys want to start this agency. I'm sure you've had this question asked a million trillion times. Erb and Young. Okay. So
I'll take this one. I'll take this one. Granddad.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, no,
I don't even have to ask
I was already
question,
reaching for the mute button. So Brett and Taylor, they're a close family, and they've got a family reunion every year. And I'm still pissed that I'm not part of this annual family reunion. They go away to Beach Week every year, and Granddad, he just turned 93 years old. I remember when Granddad asked about the name and how it came about. He said, "There's two of them and one of you." And why in the hell wouldn't it be Young and Erb? And to this day we laugh about it. And it was Brett that said it flows a little better at Erb and Young as Erb and Young instead of Young and Erb. But man, to this day I don't. Granddad, if he walked in here right now, he'd shake his head at me and go, "Man, there's two of them and one of you. I don't know why the hell this thing's called Erb and Young."
So that's the actual truth. But I was actually getting at a little different angle. Never to be confused with a national accounting firm with a somewhat similar name.
So good. I was at there's a big building here, a SunTrust building in Orlando, and I'm riding this elevator going to an appointment for a potential account. And I'm in the elevator, and somebody looks at my shirt, my Erb and Young shirt. They said, "Oh, you guys just moved to the top floor. Yep. Beautiful office. That's incredible." And I thought to myself, I didn't say anything, and I thought to myself, what are they talking about? You know? I think at this time it's probably still a really small little office space, and I'm thinking, what is it? And I get to the bottom of the elevator in this Class A beautiful building, and it says Ernst and Young at the top floor of this building, and I'm like, well
plus our original logo was written in a script, so it almost the original logo is a lot different than the block logo we use today, or the font we use today. So it was a lot easier to get it confused back then.
Was it? Okay. Yeah. So Ernst and Young, you don't do accounting, huh?
You know what's funny is like that never even, I don't even think that even came up. I don't remember that even being a consideration. We were just like, well, this is our last names. This sounds pretty good. Let's run. Let's go get customers, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like me. I have my oldest child is a son by the name of Jared. You guys are too young to remember an old TV show called The Big Valley, but there was one of the brothers name was Jared. That was a big show when there was only 6 shows on TV. So back then, but Jared is spelled Jarod. That's how I knew Jared on The Big Valley spelled it. There's no other way. So we named our son Jared, Jarod. Oh, no. As soon as that happens, we find out there's a dozen ways to spell Jared. So he's got to spell his name every time now because there's Errod, Eared, a million ways. So, yeah, we had no idea.
Well, there's never a time that I give my email address that I don't have to spell out that it's ERB. And a lot of people in our ecosystem will just say it's erbandyoung.com. So,
oh, there you go. Band, like B-A-N-D. Gotcha. Okay, so Erb and Young started, 2011-ish? Somewhere in there. So 12 years ago plus. And I'm looking at your guys' titles. This intrigues me. So Taylor is VP of Personal Lines. Rod is VP of Commercial Lines. And Brett gets the big old fat title of CEO. How'd that happen?
That's a good one.
What a great question to kick off. Because I'll let these boys take that because that's actually
Ty. You take that one. Take that.
Step
into where we are today.
Yeah, that's
you want
not
the true
one for
story?
Brett,
No, I'm kidding.
No,
it was actually. It's a really cool story, and it's still evolving. So I'll kind of hit on what Rod and I we just realigned our company from the top down and bottom up, and so actually Rod and I's positions as they read potentially on the website or even when we were set to schedule this podcast are different. We'll get into that because I think it's relevant to the listener. But it's so funny when we started 2011, right? You're just small business. Everyone's doing everything, right? You're all sharing responsibilities. The buck stops with everyone, but it's kind of like one of those things where it just gets to a point that after a certain size and scale and you have team members that are now, reporting to people, there was a chain of command that was lacking. It was always like, hey, look, the three of us are together a ton. We talk all the time, and it's still that way to this day. So we're all kind of sharing these responsibilities of growing this business. And, that was fine at first. It was actually super productive at first because it was all hands on deck, and we were all willing to do anything and everything that it took, right? No one was above a position. No one was above a meeting, a visit, a marketing call. We were all dishwashers, is like we like to say, right? So titles didn't matter, right? And then you're running, and then I think as you build a team, you start to get to a point where you have team members that are, curious at who do I go to for this? I have a question for this. You start carving out roles as you scale a little bit, and it became choppy at the top that the three of us essentially just shared all leadership responsibilities, and it just became not as productive and not as effective as it could be. So I actually remember the day. Brett, he's got a great mind for it. He was the one that, had the insurance experience coming in. Every question flowed through Brett for probably the first 2 years straight, right? If you had a question on how to quote or which market to go to or how this works, I mean, Brett, got asked every single question by us. And he also has a great ability to kind of look at the future with a very broad scope. He's got an incredible gift of vision. And really, I think the realignment at that time, I don't know, boys, that was probably 5-6 years ago that Brett took the CEO title, and it was simple as like, hey, this seems to make sense. Let's put you in a space that you can operate more in your gifts. Let Rod and I kind of sink into more of the operations and team lead spots, if you will, or vice president roles. Rod, he's the best marketer I know. He's the best influencer I know. He's the best sales professional I know. And so the commercial line side of the business fit him well because, he was used to going after big accounts in his medical background. In our business, it just translated really well, meeting with executives, CEOs, business owners. And I was more of an executor, more of an operations, just grinder, if you will. So personal lines seemed to fit really well. So kind of just looked around and said, hey, what seats in the bus are best? And we made that decision pretty quick. And then boom, we were off to the races. And there's been a lot of fruit that I think came from that clarity, both for the staff and ourselves to really own certain parts of our business to get to that next level. And we just recently kind of did that with Rod and I's role. And we're excited about the next couple of years with that clarity too.
That's awesome. It's really important that you guys understand your roles because not everybody works with partners well, especially family. So it's a real privilege to be able to do that and work harmoniously. In case you didn't know that, because not everybody. I've had a partner before and partners, and it's not that they didn't always work. It just they just weren't destined to be forever. Because we just had different.
I feel like a lot of my medical career it was dealing with partners, and I say to this day, and I'm proud to this day, I've been able to see dysfunction at the highest level between partnerships. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to anybody, but I watched egos not being fed or being fed. I watched different agendas being pushed where other ones had to be stifled. And I think we've done a good job, and I continue to remain proud of how the fact that we let each other, like you just said, realize what each other's gifts are and stay in that space. And we've been able to benefit from it. And I think the growth and the compounding effect of that has really worked in our favor with regard to how we've built this thing.
Kudos to you guys, because it's not the easy thing, but it sounds like you guys got your egos in check, and you're just able to say what's going to work for the good of the greater cause, and I applaud you for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett.
Dave, I'll give you some insight on that just for the listeners here, because there's probably some people that are, have their partnership.
For sure.
Listen to this podcast. And I also want to give people permission. There are plenty of times when all three of our egos, flare up. I mean, I think that's anybody that's an achiever and that's pushing and that's looking that thinks that they can help contribute has an opinion. And sometimes you feel passionate about that opinion. And so I think as we've grown, we have had situations that have not gone the way that we want them to go. But I think, where I value the way that this leadership team has come together is just the ability to have empathy for a different perspective and the ability to mend when maybe things don't go the way that they are. So it's not always perfect, but it's worth it for us. I love these guys dearly. I think what we have is extremely special, and I'm just very grateful that there have been tough times and we've stuck it through, and we've chosen to be understanding and love the other person instead of judgmental. And so, but I also I don't want to paint the picture that the Erb and Young guys, they're different because they never have fights, they never have disagreements. That's not the case. It's we're all human, and that's part of the messy experience that we get to play in. And it just gives somebody permission that's on the line that if things aren't going the way they you want them to, welcome to having relationships. That's just how it goes. Yeah. It's how you work within them. And at the end of the day, in our opinion, makes you.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Yeah, Brett, I just want to hit on that. You just mentioned something that's just kind of like a team building hack too. Is like we encourage a high level of conflict with a low level of ego. There's if we do an executive team meeting, we'll banter back and forth respectfully and disagree on a point, and then at the end of the hour feel like we have a path forward and we all align on. And I think that's a muscle that you flex. I think that's something that doesn't come naturally. I know, at least for me, I really truly think as a leader, anybody really within a company, that's a skill set. That's something that you have the opportunity to develop, is to say, hey, when that feeling comes up that you disagree or there's something that's not handled the way that you want it, how to have productive, respectful, tactful conflict that is not about you but is about the mission, that is not about necessarily the problem but about the solution. And so that's something we work out really hard. So I'm actually glad, Rod and Brett, you both answered eloquently, but I'm glad the partnership thing came up, because it is something we spend an incredible amount of time working on. And like Brett said, it's anything but perfect, always in motion.
A work in progress. Yep, no question. Hey Brett, I would like for you to tell our listeners about your agency. So you don't have to divulge, revenue or premium numbers, but give us an idea of the mix of your business, any niches you go after, number of employees, something like that.
Yeah, I'd love to just be as transparent as possible, because I want to give value to the person that's listening to this, because sometimes it's nice to just benchmark stuff for people, and they think, well, that might be different for them, and it's different for me, Right. I also think it's cool, like with these guys, just to give you context, Rod, recently working on that partnership, Rod's now the CMO. He's working all marketing and sales for the whole organization. And Taylor's now COO. He's running all of ops. So as we've scaled, we've had to adjust those roles to meet the needs of where we're at. Where we just had personal lines by themselves and commercial lines by themselves, now we've integrated them. We have ops and we have marketing and sales. So just to give you some context there on regards to just scaling. But we've got about 40 employees now at this point. We've got some probably 4 virtual assistants, and we're about 80% personal lines, 20% commercial. We started personal lines right out of the gate. We probably added commercial 5 years into the game. So that side is evolving quickly, which is exciting. But yeah, so I mean, I think at premium, we're probably $45 million at this point. Happen on maybe, somewhere around there at this point. But what's funny is, like, I don't know, we had like 4 employees for 6 years. Like from like 0 to 6 years, it was like 4 people, like us and 4 people. And I think that's really cool, because if I'm listening to this and when I've paid debts back, I always go, well, where am I in the cycle? Like, where can I be? And I look at that and I say, I feel like we've built a decent sized agency, and I know we're going to do a lot bigger things in the future. But for the person who's thinking, man, I've been at this for 5 years, like I'm not even, close to that or anywhere. Where am I in the cycle? I just want to give you a shout that says, man, the exponential bending curve that happens at the later part of the cycle, if you do the right things, is unbelievable. Like, money compounds every 3 years if you grow by 25%. And that was always a benchmark for us. It's like, all right, we just got to hit that 25% benchmark. So we've just put a huge emphasis on growth. And what ends up happening is at the end of that, if you just get enough momentum, like what you can accomplish on those later years in that cycle of like a decade, it just would blow you away. it'll blow you away. I mean, I know in our first year we wrote $300,000 in premium. Our first year, 3 mouths to feed. No, like barely an experience. We wrote 300 grand for the entire year. I mean, just put that in perspective. So that's like 30 grand in revenue between 3 people, right? Like it's just impossible to even fathom. This month we just did $1 million in premium and new business. So we just wrote $1 million. Two months ago we wrote another $1 million. We'll probably write 10, 12 million for the year. And I just think about that in the grand scheme of things in regards to, it probably took us 5 years to write that in accumulation of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. So it's like the exponential compounding, if you do the right things and you build a team and not just build a book of business, but are building a business inside of this mechanism of insurance, it just gets explosive. And where you are today doesn't have to be where you're going to be in the future as long as you continue to plan.
For sure. So Rod, follow up to Brett's comment there. So for how many years you had 4 employees plus you 3? What changed for you to go from 4 to the next level?
Man, I think we got better across the board. We got more effective with marketing. We got way better at sales. Back in those days, Taylor was kind of leading the marketing efforts. He was the only one out marketing. We run a referral-based model on the personal line side of things. And then, on the commercial line side of things, Brett and I just really worked through our networks and we were active in the community. We call it playing in traffic. We were able to land a couple of nice size accounts back then and really just kind of prove to ourselves we could do it. I think that was a big thing. And then like these guys both said, and like I believe too, it's like then it's just about assembling a team. And teaching other people to do what you've done, right? So we say all the time, don't do what works, do what duplicates. And we just started teaching people what we were doing. People can come up with little crafty ways of doing things better. And if you're innovating within a role, that's okay. But on the macro, I mean, we were adamant about, listen, here's the playbook, do it this way. We were able to teach it this way. We were effective at teaching it. And that's when we really started seeing the explosive growth, I think, kind of midway through that phase and that period where Brett's talking about to where we are today. And, with $1 million, with $1 million a month, I see 2 million on the horizon, to be honest with you. And it's the same things that got you here are the same things that are going to get you to the next million. So, what I love about our model and I love about our philosophy is what worked to get us to this point, do that more and it gets you to this point, and then do the whole thing more and it gets you to the next level. So, just consistent effort, consistency, I guess, is one of the things I'd really lean on there.
Yeah, and I want to give context to that too, is like almost in a weird way, Dave, is that the 3 of us aligned where we just, you hear that begin with the end in mind type deal. I mean, we used to, we run a personal development call every week. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, but we go through a book with our team. We have little platforms. We do events. We do 2 big events a year. We usually do 4 all company events if everything goes well, where there's certain things that, as they've talked about team building and culture and stuff like that, there's certain platforms that we committed to when it was just the 3 of us. I mean, the story I like to tell is that we were so committed to our personal development call and going through the books together that one time the 3 of us were going to get on a conference call and Rod and I missed the call, and Brett actually recorded the call and did the call by himself for himself with nobody else on the call. I mean, that's how committed we were to these principles that seem silly. Like we do an annual leadership summit, just like you have an event for your platform once a year. We have an event for our company, and it's every September or October. And then we just talk about, hey, where did we come from? Where did we finish the year? And where are we going? And vision for the company. But we were doing that event, back when we had a budget of $500, and we actually made a trophy for the Impact Award winner when it was just the 3 of us, right? So that's how crazy we were about that. So I think the beginning with the end in mind, where you start to see that hockey bending curve, came from building it and of what duplicates, not what works. I think that's why for us that it got really, really explosive. And then I think strategically too, we've sought out acquisitions. we've done 5 of them. The large majority of our premium and our growth is organic. We are organic growth fiends. We cut our teeth on it. But make no mistake, I mean, if there's an opportunity that comes along in the form of a smaller acquisition, we have a playbook that we love to execute if it fits our eye and it fits our filter. So in 2018, we had our largest acquisition happen. And I think that really helped launch us into a stratosphere of, okay, hey, now everyone's doing sales and service or sharing all these roles. Now we really get into a scaled out model where you have a customer service team, you have a marketing and sales team, and we've really enterprised from there. But I think with that acquisition, if those core principles and philosophies weren't in place, I don't think it would have catapulted it like it has in the last 5 years. So just kind of want to give that context.
Okay. Hey, Brett, how much of your business is written in the state of Florida, percentage-wise?
Well, that's a good question. I was going to say Rod's very humble with attracting a couple good accounts. Rod has might be a couple $1 million accounts at this point, but he's written some pretty large commercial business, and one of which is outside the state of Florida. But besides that one, majority of it is in Florida. We do have some commercial business, but I'd say 95%
plus of your business is in the state of Florida. So this is the question that everybody's going to want me to ask on this podcast of you three. $1 million new business in May of 2023 in the frickin' state of Florida. Are you kidding me right now? Nobody is talking about growth on new business side. No one. Yeah. So who wants to take that? All 3 of you can take a turn, because this is like the $1 million question.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a couple years in the making. I think COVID for everyone really, you reflected on what is this environment going to be. I mean, whether it's Florida or otherwise, there was some oh shit moments, right? I mean, there was, is our business going to change? I mean, so much of our business is driven by real estate closings and mortgage broker relationships that, we took that opportunity to really just dive in and say classes in session. Things are about to get hard, and what an opportunity for us to get better. And Brett outlaid that in a nice format for the team. I remember that was clear as day. We had the whole company remote, and all 3 of us aligned, but Brett was able to lead the charge and kind of share with the team that, hey, we have an opportunity over these next couple of years. Things are going to get weird. Things are going to get hard. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. And we just got busy, and the first phase was classes in session, and sometimes when things are hard, whether it's recessionary or otherwise, and the marketplace dictates it, it's a great time to go back to school, right? So we got busy with what one of our core philosophies is personal development, and what can we learn how to be better agents, better professionals, better people, and all drumming to that mentality, right? And then that kind of led to a ramp up of production, because the Florida marketplace was still pretty good. It wasn't as limited back in 2020. So you had this really increase of crazy real estate market activity. We were set up for it. We were able to write a lot of business. And then things have gotten weirder every single year as far as the Florida marketplace. And now we're in a full blown, maybe the hardest market that any state has ever seen, but specifically Florida. But I truly think we've constantly pounded to ourselves, and then also the team has kind of bought in on that, is that, look, we always say the harder it gets, the better it gets. Because if the harder it gets for us, the harder it's getting for somebody else. And we feel like there's opportunity. And that's not to say some days you just want to bang your head against the wall because you got a 9-year-old roof that you can't place. But at the same time, it's created a ton of opportunity, or at least we see it that way. So, boys, I jumped you, but I just kind of wanted to jump right in there.
I'll provide.
So, Rod, here's what I want to know, Rod. Let me preface that what Taylor just said. So, what specifically are you doing? Are you shifting to carrier A and B, and that's it? Because the options are so limited right now. What are you doing specifically to make that work? $1 million new premium.
Well, I think we've doubled down on marketing. I think that's an important piece. I mean, they're still building houses all over the place. I mean, there's still people that are closing on these houses, and it's just a matter of, the shops that were once doing, 100 units a month mortgage shops, they're doing a little bit less. So I think you've got to be more vigilant and more aware with the marketing effort. But I want to go back to one thing Taylor said. In our life cycle, we had never seen a market like this. So we didn't, people say, oh, it's so hard. I chose to use the word, it's just different. It's hard would mean it's crippling. It's scarcity. It's like, it's doom and gloom. And I mean, I realize it's not what it was, but it's just a different market. So for me, the first thing I'll say to that is, be careful how you talk to yourself, right? It's like if you talk to yourself hard enough, you're going to believe that there's no option, there's no way out. I just say it's a different market and someone's going to figure it out. So I think our attitude was, as like what Taylor said, and through that, classes in session type approach we took, just figure out how we're going to do it different. Figure out how we're going to look at it different. Figure out how we're going to, navigate things different. And then the second half of that is thankfully one of the philosophies and core beliefs we have is personal development. There's going to be a lot of tough conversations, right? The quickest way to get through a tough conversation is be equipped to have one, right? So for the whole team, it was like not everybody on the team is at the same level of development. So they're not all equipped to have the tough conversations as they come along with clients that are, getting renewals that are 3 or 4x what they were or more, or having conversations about, new quotes that are going out and being able to understand and articulate why it's higher. So I think those two things, it's how you looked at the market, how you would describe the market. It's a different market, not necessarily a hard market, although we know it's a hard market. I get the obvious, but I think that goes a lot into the psyche, and then just being able to make sure that people are developed and aware enough to be able to have tough conversations. So I think those two things for me resonate the most. Specific to carriers, I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I know that we represent most everybody who's left. And again, when you get those options back, here's the best option. If you're price conscious, here's the lowest price. If you're carrier conscious, here's the best carrier. And not confusing people with too much information. A confused mind does nothing. So I think we've made some tweaks. We've had some impressive innovation amongst our team members that have navigated that themselves and shared it amongst the platform. Matt in particular, I think the way he's handled that and how he continues to think his way through that has helped a lot of people with how they present the option, whichever it is, high price, or excuse me, best company, here it is, lowest price, here it is, and there's our option. So those are my thoughts.
And I want to.
So you just talked about, sorry, Taylor, you just talked about, Rod, still building new homes. So I'm just talking in generalities. So have you, for example, taken whatever it is, 300 new homes that you insure a month or 400, whatever the number is, and instead of, because now carriers are going to love the brand new homes and the 1-year roofs versus, this block of 20-year-old roofs that we used to insure in normal times. Have you just moved those over and said, okay, instead of a split of 50-50, 20-year-old homes and brand new homes, we're going to shift them more towards the new side, and that's where your marketing's going? Is it something like that? Or no?
Go ahead. Go ahead, boys.
Yeah, I was going to take that. Dave, our in our ecosystem, there's the stakeholders are, number one, it's team members first and foremost. We're a culture-centric company, but number two is referral source. Mm-hmm. We're heavy in regards to referral partners, in regards to taking care of them. So we have not changed our marketing efforts. We've taken some situations that we can't write the business and we don't write it, but we are marketing to the same people, to the same companies, to the same partners, the same situations. We're just, like Rod said, instead of having 20 sources, we need to have 60. And there are situations that come in that we may have to write some citizens business that we never wrote. We didn't have like one citizens policy before this stuff hit the fan. And now Citizens, like everybody else, is your number one carrier. So, it's not good. It's not ideal, right? Like, so But at the same time, that is the mark. It's just different. And, as Rod says, it depends on how you look at it. And what we've done, Dave, that I think might help some listeners is we've just gotten fanatical. If we're going to write the citizens business, we're going to write the auto. We just made a decision in a line in the sand that said we are going to be fanatical about servicing the right type of client. We had a lot of monoline because we're saying, all right, do we not write citizens? Do we write citizens? And I think everybody toggled back and forth with that for a while. And, we had our top producers get in a room, and we were basically had shouting matches debating this. And like we said, high conflict, low ego, we came out of it and said, this is an opportunity. And if we don't move fast and move quick, we're not going to be able to capitalize on it. So we said, no, we'll write the stuff that we never wrote before. But we're going to require writing the other lines of business with us. And it's made a huge increase. I just ran the numbers, last week? And the amount of auto conversions that we've had since last year is staggering. It's staggering. It is a massive, massive increase. We're converting almost 58% of the auto now on closings, whereas before it was like 30. It was like 28. It's insane. So we're figuring out ways to get better in regards to writing the lines that we should have been writing before, but we were so busy and we were so fine with just writing home that we didn't necessarily do a good enough job. And so we said, okay, cool. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. We've got to get fanatically good about writing the stuff that we should have wrote before. And that is one tactical, specific way that we've been able to make up not only the premium difference, but just the revenue. We've had commission cuts. We're moving stuff from citizens. We're getting... It's a bloodbath. And the other part is, Dave, is regards to profitability. That's the hardest part during this. Everybody wants to shrink down, right? Everybody got raises last year in the entire organization. That was a lot of money, right? And we had commission cuts that we've never had before. That was a lot of money, right? So why? What do you do? It's the bottom line is if we're feeling the pressure, this is the conversations we've had. If we're feeling the pressure of this challenge, everybody else is. Sure. And so it's just how willing are you to do the stuff that's really difficult to do? How willing are you to do what you probably should do, but it's just painful to do? And so the rally of having three partners to where we hold each other accountable to do the right thing instead of what our emotions do. I can't take out a bunch of money in the business because I decide to this month, if it's just me. I got to be accountable to these two guys and all the employees. I think the same with decision making to say, hey, look, when people are bearish, let's be aggressive. And when people are excited and think that it's gluttony, let's be conservative. And so when everybody shrunk down and the market went doom and gloom, we looked at each other and said, man, this is our opportunity. Like if you're at a deck of cards and you want to get that ace to the top of the deck, you got to get a shuffle. And this has been a shuffle. Like, this is our shuffle. I got goosebumps right now because we've been grinding at this for so long, doing it the wrong way, beating our head in the ground, just working effortlessly, tirelessly. And, you're waiting for a moment when you can have this big shift. And it just comes in a big gift-wrapped, it comes in this pile. It's bad. It usually comes in a bad package, and you can look at it and go, "Oh, this is really bad," or you can say, "No, because it's bad, there are agents that are going to exit. There are people that are going to not market because it doesn't make sense because they're commission cuts. They're not going to hire because it's too expensive to get people on the bus. There's all these factors that are going to limit people from being aggressive." And we went on offense when everybody else.
That's really well said.
That's amazing, man. I
really well said.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
That is awesome. Can I tell you guys something? So I interact every day by the hour, almost by the minute, with newer agents, 1 year or less, right? And they hear all of us old timers talk about hardest market I've ever seen. And they don't know that. They've never seen a hard market. They just know it's as hard as it is right now, not compared to yesterday or a year ago or 10 years ago. So I keep telling these young guys, you have never seen a better time to enter this industry. You are going to take it. And if you have intention of growing, which you should, there's no other way to build. Most likely for especially a scratch agent, you're going to grow, and you're going to grow so exponentially that people are going to be, the old timers or even the 5 and 10 year guys are going to be in awe because you've never seen a time like this prime for growth. And I applaud you guys for basically what I hear you say is it was just a matter of attitude. That's really was the biggest factor, a matter of attitude. And you just said, no, we're not doing it. We're going to do what we know we can do and do it better. And like Brett said, it's just comes gift wrapped for you like the best Christmas you've ever had. And it just happens because you've got that mindset. And I'm a huge fan of mindset. So that's what I tell these young guys. If you think there's been harder times, no, there haven't been. So if you can make it in the next 12 months, you're golden, brother. You're as golden as it's going to get. And 2, 3, 4, 5 years, oh my gosh, the world is your oyster. Yeah. Go get it.
That's incredible.
So that's what
Dave, I just wanted to give a big shout out. Our relationship management teams, we used to be customer service. We've shifted that language, but we've had, I'd love to take credit, for how the team has rallied through this. But man, we have some tough, resilient, talented, innovative people within our organization where I'm just reminded, you talk about Brett, you getting goosebumps. I'm just reminded that you have this hard market. And then Southern Fidelity Property and Casualty was a Florida carrier that went belly up first. And we had 325 policies with them that had to be rewritten that were being canceled flat in 45 days right before hurricane season, right? So amongst all of that, no non-renewals, just all of a sudden you taking your current service load and then dumping a big pile of gasoline, a huge fire on it and going, hey, go ahead and put this out when you're ready, And so I will say, though, I think what's practically helpful for the listener, and we keep going back there, Brett mentioned about, conversions on auto. We had a rally cry. It's like, look, what's the hardest thing to get? It's the customer's attention, right? It's the customer's attention. You might think that writing a person's business and then never hearing from them 10 years from now would be a good thing, and maybe it is to a certain extent, but we have people calling. They are upset. They are in pain, and we may not necessarily have a solution, but we have their attention. So what can we do? Let's ask better questions, right? Let's talk about, what we can do. Home and auto was a big thing. So like our relationship management team on personal lines, which isn't a huge group as far as like the numbers go of licensed CSRs. I would say it's 5 or 6 people. And then we have some virtual assistants that support them. But 2 months ago, I think in March, they almost wrote almost 100 new business policies. That's our relationship management team. And I think they almost wrote, and it's crazy. And you say, well, how would they do that? Well, it's because they have the customer's attention and they're asking questions and they're supersizing it. They're asking, hey, why don't we have your car insurance? Would you be willing to hire us as your full-time agent? Having those conversations, as Rod mentioned, as you develop, first you get into the business, you perceive those as tough conversations. Well, I'm just going to take this order and try to get this homeowner's quote out, or I'm just going to take this remarket request and try to get them a new price, even though that I know they're in the best spot. I'm not willing to have a 5-minute conversation to tell them that 30% rate increase is going to be the best for them, right? Because I'm not developed enough. So I just want to give our staff has been incredible, and we've learned a lot with that pressure that was put on our ecosystem by these carriers going out of business. We had to figure out how we did things better. We went to calendar links and appointment settings. We streamlined our process. We, all these different things. We had other people take the trailing documents rather than the CSR. So we had all these things that we were forced to get better at because we were put so much pressure on that we've now actually utilized over the entire ecosystem in our sales and marketing efforts. So I just wanted to share that context too, because that's a little bit more tangible. There's a philosophy that drives those efforts, that gets to those questions, but I think there's a tangible part of that that's important.
I want a quick follow-up to that. Taylor, you mentioned relationship management. A lot of the attitude, I think it would be pretty common to say, I'm a customer service person. I'm either going to service or I'm going to sell or cross-sell around. And this team has adopted the philosophy of and kind of rings true to me. We're gonna do our normal routine of servicing and handling needs that they have, and we're not going to be afraid when it comes time to have an opportunity presented to us to ask a question and ultimately round it or cross sell. Why don't we have your auto? So I shout out to them too for for adopting that philosophy of and rather than or, because I think or is a more normal, it's a more accepted thought. I'm a service person versus we're gonna contribute to this at this time, and we're gonna find a way to get through it and do it. So, yeah, shout out to them big time.
Yeah, there's no better time to build relationships with your clientele than now, because you are talking to them. More probably so than you ever have. About 9 years ago in my small retail agency, I started implementing texting with my clientele. And oh my gosh, our contact rates just went through the roof when we started texting. We didn't do it before, but the response rate was nothing compared to, voicemails or emails, nothing. And we just started going. And so if you guys seen any one little, that was a small change, but any one little technological advancement or tool that you started using that's helped you recently, let's say in the last couple of years?
I'll take the first one. It's not necessarily that COVID situation. We were doing it before. We saw a significant increase in conversions when we started doing video.
Okay, video.
Every proposal that we do has a video attached to it. So, that's been probably in the last 4 or 5 years, but that made a significant.
Yeah, so that was huge for me too. I had a hard time keeping my producers on that because they just would want to get lazy, and I'm like, dude, you're dropping money out of your pocket, don't you see it? So I'd help them understand that, the difference in the numbers, show them the numbers, and they're like, oh yeah, I could use a few hundred more a day. So that was an easy conversation. So I'm going to switch the pitch a little bit here, guys, because we've got probably just 5-10 minutes left. So Rod, on your LinkedIn profile, you have a hashtag, never drop your shield. Tell us what's up with that.
We have a summit every year, and every year we have a theme, and we had a guest speaker join us at our summit one year and present us with a gift of a shield, and brought with him some wristbands that said "Never drop your shield," just meaning, this is way bigger than any one person. What you do matters. How you operate affects a team member. Never drop your shield. It's just a creed that we live by, and meaning, if you drop your shield, you're either exposing yourself or you're exposing somebody next to you, and that's just something we believe heavily in.
Cool. Very cool. Last thing I want to talk about is your guys' podcast. The name is Be Extraordinary Podcast. There you go, Brett. So who's the brainchild behind it?
Brett
is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I dragged them into this idea of doing a podcast. So in a world where you're really busy with a bunch of stuff and you're dealing, 3 different projects and there's 4 different fires, going to your partners and saying, hey, we're going to do this podcast thing. They probably looked at me like, here goes Brett again, but candidly, the podcast, was for the 3 of us to get together. We're all in different spaces, as you could see from this call, and it has been something that I know we cherish and I value and they value, to be able to get together. And, we work through stuff. Having 3 people, you have 3 heads, and we all have these similar philosophies, but that doesn't just happen by accident. It's because we have discussions and talks and conversations and debates. And, I think the podcast has been this really cool way for us to reaffirm and re-articulate and go through this stuff and have a debate and challenge. And so it was an opportunity to take the inward stuff that we're doing internally and be able to show that externally to the world. I mean, just our content in general. But it was birthed from the 3 of us being able to get together and kind of share those things, get back to when it was just us at a coffee table, mapping out a logo on how we were going to start this thing. And then, you got to get busy and you get poured in all these different directions and you lose touch with that stuff. So it's been fun.
I got to admit, I've only listened to about half of an episode. So is your format just the 3 of you chat, or do you bring on guests 100%?
It's both. We've probably done more guests than just the 3 of us, just because we just love getting other people's stories. But We're going to be doing a lot of content with it's just the three of us as of late. We've just gotten some feedback where to share some of the insight and stuff that we're dealing with and going through and have lived by has been some things that we haven't necessarily been as true to because we've just been, we've got some really cool guests that have been on the show. So it's both. It's a blend, It just depends on kind of what the schedule looks like that month or that week. But yeah, we're excited to do a lot more of the three of us to kind of talk about what's happening inside of her.
Yeah. So when you do look for the ideal guest, are you looking for just cool human beings, or are they folks who are in the industry, or are they a target market in your commercial clientele that you're trying to attract? Well, how do you look at that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I'm sitting here in the studio where we record it, and to be extraordinary to us is a personal philosophy and a way of life that epitomizes excellence in everything that we do. So the Be Extraordinary brand is in essence saying you live by excellence, and any high achiever or anybody that wants more and sets out their day and their week and their month to be great, those are the people that we're looking to interact with. And so it's a broad scope of industries. We've had different industries. We've had referral partners that we work with. We've had big commercial accounts. We've had billion-dollar CEOs in here. We've had some big-time people that have been on the show that share the philosophies and the way of thinking that they live by to allow not only themselves but their teams and the people around them obtain success. So it's a much more general idea than just an industry specifically.
Gotcha. Have you had Johnny Dawkins on yet?
We haven't, man. We have not gone that route. I appreciate you putting the pressure on me.
Why in the heck have we not had?
No, quite frankly, I know Johnny.
On, Taylor, that's
Johnny
a
from
fail.
a distance. I don't know him well, so but maybe that will that'll change.
Maybe he'll hear this podcast and call you up.
There you go.
Anyway, that's all we have for today, guys. I want to thank you, Rod, Brett, and Taylor. Rod Erb, Brett Young, Taylor Young from Erb and Young, and they are in Orlando, Florida area agency. I know what it's like for you three to carve out an hour of your time on the same day and hour and join me. So I can't say it enough. I appreciate you guys coming on. I know our listeners are going to enjoy it. Thanks so much for being with me. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to Collabcast with IAOA with Captain Dave Jackson.